This lecture is about Chapter 8 in Essential Linguistics, Morphology and Reading, with a focus on what it means to truly know a word. Truly knowing a word means you need to be able to pronounce the word. That is, you need to know its phonological aspects. You need to know the morphological part of it, knowing the root word and what affixes can be used with it. You need to know the syntactic part, the syntactic piece to it. What part of speech is the word? Where can it be used, and how is it used in a sentence? We've looked at these so far these past few weeks. Adding on to this is the semantic meaning. Maybe you've thought all along truly knowing a word was just knowing the definition. That is, that you could look it up in the dictionary. But there's a lot deeper meaning to truly knowing a word. You need to know not only the definition, but probably the synonyms and antonyms, words related to it, its metaphorical use. And you need to know the pragmatic part of it. When is it used? Where is it used? Let's take a closer look at the syntactic part. So syntactic or syntax is what you've probably always grown up calling just plain grammar. Add to your list the word syntax, because I'll tell you now it'll be on that Orella test. Syntax is where is the grammar, where a word can be used in a sentence. What part of speech is it? We can know a lot from just understanding the English sentence structure. We know that an English sentence structure is subject, verb, object. We can find out the placement in the sentence from this. So you see the sentence sample there, the man XX over the log. What is XX going to be? It's going to be a verb. That's because we know subject, verb, object is the sentence structure for English. We also know the structure of a phrase. We know that a phrase is going to have an article. It might have an adjective, it doesn't have to, and then a noun. So you could see the word the big house. If I don't know the word big, I can guess at least that it's an adjective describing house. The semantic meaning of a word. Now here's where we're thinking about the definition from the dictionary, and of course that is an important piece to it, but it's more than that. We will also benefit by knowing synonyms to that word and antonyms. It helps us know a deeper level of what the word means. And the metaphorical use. If we want to think about how is that word truly used, then we can think too about, well, did we mean a mouse as in the little animal a mouse? Or did we mean the thing that we use with our computer to point to things? So there's a lot more depth to the semantic meaning of a word than just the dictionary definition. Then we look at the pragmatic part of knowing a word. And our textbook had an example of using the word dude and sir. When would you use one and when would you use the other? If I'm meeting the President of the United States, I'm certainly not going to say, hey, dude. And then probably wouldn't use the word dude now anyway, because it's really out of fashion. But you get the idea. So communication is also more than the sum of the words. And we use a lot of context around it. For example, if someone says to me, it sure is cold in here, well, what's the true meaning of this? It actually means turn up the heat. So how something gets communicated and how it's said is really more sometimes than the intended meaning, not just the words that were said. And it's, of course, related to the context of the culture that it's in as well. We're going to take a look at a video in just a minute, and it's going to be showing some vocabulary instruction. I want you to think about what strategies does the teacher use, and how does the lesson help the students learn different aspects of the word. Think about the phonological. Do they understand how to say the word and what it sounds like? Morphological. Do they look into any of the roots or affixes to the word? What about syntactical? Do they think about and talk about the part of speech and where it can be used in a sentence? And semantics. Do they know the definition and the related words to it? These are aspects I want you to think about as you see this video.
Say violent. Violent. On your word square, up at the very top, it says word. Write the word violent. Put your pencil down when you're finished so I know you're done. Violent means you are powerful enough to destroy buildings. When something is powerful enough to destroy buildings, it is violent. It is violent. Very good. When something's powerful enough to destroy buildings, it is violent. For example, tornadoes are pretty violent. Tornadoes can tear the roofs off of buildings. So we would say tornadoes can be violent. Another thing that was very violent that was in the news lately is the earthquake that was in Japan. It was a violent earthquake and actually caused lots and lots of damage to the buildings there, and a lot of people lost their lives because of that violent earthquake. Okay? Turn to your partner and tell them something that you've seen on TV lately as far as a violent storm. Describe the result of a violent storm you've seen on TV. 30 seconds. Brennan. Where's Brennan? Brennan, tell me what your partner said. What did they describe? Did they describe a storm they've seen on TV? Did you have A's talk, or did they get a chance to talk? Okay, tell me what you heard.
Tsunami and earthquake.
Okay, a tsunami or an earthquake is something maybe you've seen on TV that can be violent. Okay, quick, Kellen, where's Kellen? Kellen, did your partner get a chance to tell you about something violent on TV that they've seen?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about it.
Earthquake in Japan.
The earthquake in Japan. There's been lots of pictures all over the news about the earthquake in Japan, hasn't there? So we would say that's very violent. Now, I'm going to show you guys some pictures up here, and you have to decide whether they could be violent or not violent, okay? Here's the first one. A tornado.
Violent.
Perfect. A newborn baby.
Not violent.
We hope not violent, right? Yes. Okay. Probably not powerful enough to destroy buildings. How about a wave? Only this wave is 23 foot tall. Or we could say even as tall as your school building. Think?
Violent.
Yes. What if I said that wave is 2 foot tall?
Not violent.
Not violent. Those are the waves that we like to swim in. How about a semi that spun out of control?
Violent.
And how about a baby king?
Not violent.
Perfect. I think you guys got it. In your notebook, later on, in your notebook, what I want you guys to do, or in your packet that I gave you, underneath the word violent, there's another box that says illustration. Take 30 seconds. Draw a sketch of something you know that could be violent. Quick sketch. Underneath the word illustration, 30 seconds.
Okay, let's move on now to two kinds of language that they discuss in our book. And it's really looking at Bix and Kelp. These two terminologies, again, I can tell you for certain will be on that Arella test. So cement them somewhere in your mind so that you can pull them out again. It's also really important to be able to talk about it with your colleagues. So it's not just academic language in your book. It's something to really know and remember. Bix is, as they say, basic interpersonal communication skill. It's everyday conversation. It's being able to just speak in a normal conversation about everyday things. And it's used contextually or with paralinguistic cues. That is, it's used with face expressions, with gestures, with intonations. It makes it much easier to understand because of the easy content and the things that go along with it that help you understand it. Then the other aspect, or the flip of the coin we might say, is CALP. That's Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. And you want to understand that CALP is really what we are using a lot of in school. Certainly our textbook is full of CALP. It's full of academic language. It's very formal. It's very subject related to particular content. And it's much more difficult to understand. Let's take a look at how we might compare these two aspects of learning a language or learning vocabulary. Bix takes about 2 years to learn, and CALP takes 5 to 7 years. If you're thinking about that ELL student in your classroom, they may be able to speak pretty good English after about 2 years, and you think, oh, they've really got the handle on English. Well, not necessarily on academic language. So Bix is really less cognitively demanding. It's often done face to face. There's a lot of cues you can get when you're talking to someone face to face. It has extensive gestures and it has context to it. We'll talk about context in a few minutes when we get on to looking at Cummins' quadrant. And the language is expressed by listening and speaking. This is a lot of playground conversations you might see, or asking questions that are really quite simple. For example, the student in the classroom that says, can I go to the bathroom? Or is it time for lunch? And these are easy things for students to be able to negotiate because it's easier language. It's Bix. On the other hand, we have Kelp. Kelp is more difficult. It's intellectually demanding kind of language. It's very abstract. Those concepts that might be related to our book, definitely abstract. All the vocabulary we've had to learn, it's difficult. It's lacking context, and it's lacking paralinguistic cues. Paralinguistic, things that we communicate without the words themselves. When we give a frown or when we laugh, there's some paralinguistic cues, but when we have Kelp language, it's often missing. And there's an emphasis on reading and writing. So Kelp language is more frequently done by reading and writing and not by listening and speaking, although a lecture can definitely be in Kelp language too. Taking a test and anything that's on an unfamiliar subject is going to be a piece of Kelp. Let's take these concepts now and look at them in relationship to Cummins' quadrant. Cummins sections are related. They are talking about fixed kinds of language, that is cognitively not demanding language. You can see in quadrant A, we have the children playing on the playground as an example. That is, there's face-to-face contact, it's easy language, they can pick up this kind of language actually fairly quickly. In quadrant C, it's also mixed kinds of language, but it's not quite as easy. So for example, if you're talking on the telephone, you don't have any context for it, you don't see someone, but it's still easy kind of language. On the bottom half, we have what is cognitively demanding. That is, it's more difficult language. And this kind of language can be easier to understand, as we see in B, because it might be that it's an experiment in class, it's got to do with science, but you're seeing things, you've got pictures, you've got actual things that you're handling to do the experiment, so it's a little bit easier to understand. And in quadrant D, we've got cognitively demanding, that is Kelp language also, but it's context reduced because it has no pictures, no things, no face-to-face. This is what you might see in standardized testing. So as we think about truly knowing a word, there are many aspects to truly knowing a word. And when you teach children, you need to keep in mind not just the dictionary definition, but all aspects of knowing that word. I hope this has helped you in reviewing the concepts from Chapter 8. Be sure to go back and write down all these vocabulary words. You can be sure they'll be on the Arella test as well as a quiz in our class.